All right. Let's see if we are live here. Hey everybody, how you doing? Looks like we've got some people online, and I appreciate that a lot. It's nice to come on and actually have somebody to talk to instead of having to wait around for somebody to show up. I'm in Jerusalem. Chuck Holton here. Thank you for all of the new subscribers. We've got a lot of new subscribers, and that's pretty cool. I wanted to, first of all, make sure that, can you hear me, babe? My beautiful wife back there is listening to, okay, so I've got good sound. All right. Nothing worse than, especially when I use this setup, it's a better camera, it's a better microphone, it's a better for me to be able to see your comments and that sort of thing, but it's much more complex. And matter of fact, I just saw something here that's not plugged in. That would be bad if my battery died right in the middle of the broadcast. So, okay. Obviously, the war's back on. I've got a few things to talk about that I didn't talk about on the CBN broadcast I just finished a little while ago. So if you were watching on that broadcast, then well, I'm not going to cover all the same stuff. But just to give you that didn't see that, a quick update. There are still something like 137 hostages that have not been released. They managed to release over 100 hostages, and before the ceasefire ended. Hamas broke the ceasefire several times, both from Gaza and here in Jerusalem and from the West Bank. So when they didn't provide a list of new hostages for today, the IDF turned it back on. I would venture to say, because they say that the negotiations are still going on to try to get more hostages out. They haven't stopped the negotiations. But I think the bigger reason why they turned it back on, just because they didn't get the list of hostages in time, the bigger reason is because Anthony Blinken came here and said to Bibi Netanyahu in no uncertain terms that he would not restart the war, that the ceasefire would continue indefinitely, and according to some sources, that the Israelis do not have enough credit with the United States to continue this war, whatever that's supposed to mean. Blinken then left and went and met personally with Mahmoud Abbas, who is the head of the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank in Ramallah. And so to leave the president of the aggrieved party and go meet with the president of the terror group is pretty egregious. And really, both Bibi Netanyahu and Anthony Blinken, and through Anthony Blinken, Joe Biden, are not speaking to each other. They're speaking to their own electorate. So Joe Biden is speaking, definitely, he's working on trying to bolster his ratings with the people who voted for him, many of whom are very pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian. And so he is turning away from Israel, which is going to hurt him. He has a lot of people in the United States. There are a lot of people that voted for Joe Biden who are very pro-Palestine, very pro-Hamas even, but they don't donate anywhere near as much money as the liberal Jews who voted for Joe Biden would tend to donate to his campaign. Now, that's my opinion. I don't have numbers to back that up, but I would venture to say that he's going to alienate his donors, and he's kind of in a bad situation as far as that goes, because he's got people on both sides of this conflict who are his base. So he's bound to offend pretty much everybody. You're not, if you don't go 100% one side or the other, you are going to offend both sides. That's sort of how this works in politics. So Anthony Blinken is over here trying to straddle the fence, and it's a very sharp, pointy fence. And it served to diminish Mahmoud Abbas in the eyes of his own people for meeting with the great Satan. And it served to I'm just waiting for the bus to back up, but I just looked down and it's already there. So our beeping backup bus is already in place for tonight. I'm sorry about that, folks. I have to deny you the pleasure of listening to that unbelievably loud backup camera or backup beeper for 10 minutes while this guy very slowly backs across the parking lot, which he does every night. So this meeting by Blinken and with Abbas did not help Abbas at all. It may have helped Biden some, but it certainly didn't make the war cabinet here in Israel any less likely to restart the war. And in fact, they went into session, and when they came out, they made a statement that we are not going to be kowtowed by the United States or anybody else. We are going to prosecute this war to the fullest extent because the government here in Israel is on the line. If you recall, before all this happened, the government has been on shaky ground for some time. And this has unified the country behind the objective of wiping out Hamas, but their political fortunes are still just as tenuous, the people who are in power right now, and they know it. They also know that there's going to be a commission that's going to be seated after this fight is over that is going to be looking for who to blame. And those guys are squarely in the crosshairs of who's to blame. And so they are, it's kind of like when your mom, says, I'm going to come in there and, tear you apart if you don't start acting better. You're going to, at least for a little while, start acting better. At least if you had my mom. I'm just looking to see if I got any messages here that are relevant to what we're doing. Okay. So I went down yesterday and met with the IDF, met at the hospital, and I told you about the video with the trauma surgeon from the United States. This is a lady who she's a Jewish American lady. She saw what happened on October 7th and dropped everything in her job as a trauma surgeon, highly successful in Long Island, the Bronx, somewhere like that, and came over here to work in the hospital closest to the fighting. And she said she's seen things here. She said, actually, being in New York prepared me very well for what I've seen here, which says a lot about New York, doesn't it? She also said that without a doubt, even in Ashkelon, where she's only 15 seconds from a missile exploding if they fire it out of Gaza, she is objectively safer in Ashkelon than she is in New York City. We talked about that at length. And that says a lot that I wish we didn't have to say about the United States right now. So I told you about the quotes that she was giving me about how things are she's seeing so many miracles. She's obviously not a believer, but she's seeing so many miracles. So I have that quote loaded in here, and I wanted to let you watch it. So I'm going to let you watch it here. Here's the doc. Listen.
They're very much miracles what they're seeing here. It's literally like things are going out of their way to miss integral organs. The injuries I'm seeing here, had I seen them in the Bronx, would have been devastating, life-ending, debilitating injuries. Here, I don't know whether it's someone watching over them or whether it's just the strength of these people. Every single one of them, they come here, they're all injured. The first thing they do is ask when they can go back, because it's really the strength that you're seeing here. And miracle of miracles, we're just seeing incredible feats of strength and just someone's watching over us from above.
Okay, so that is the trauma doc. Somebody just asked, I just saw a question go by, is the propaganda the same in this war as in other countries? You probably should, I'd like you to clarify that question maybe, but if you're asking what I think you're asking, propaganda is huge in every war nowadays, And I talked at length about that on the CBN Live that I just did. You can go over there and watch that. I didn't mean to rant about that as much as I did, but it's something that I'm kind of passionate about. I'm very frustrated with the IDF because they know better. The guys that I'm talking to, they get it, but it's coming from much higher than them. That they're just not allowing journalists to go in and do our jobs, and they think that by providing us with footage that they shot of what's going on in Gaza, that will be good enough, but it's not good enough because they're one of the combatants, and so by definition they are skewed one way or the other, and they need to allow impartial observers to go in and look at what's going on. They need to. It's not that I don't believe them. It's not that I think that they're lying about what they're saying. I believe them, but the world is much more skeptical because they're not here. The world needs a third party to tell them what's going on, and they ought to be allowing it, but they're just not. And I'm frustrated by that. But we're still working on that, trying to make that happen. I wanted to show you something else I saw today. I got a chance to go and meet with Michelle Bachmann for a couple hours today. Michelle Bachmann, a former congressperson from Minnesota, and former presidential candidate back in 2012. She'd been a better choice than Romney was, for sure, but she lost that debate and that election, and she eventually retired from politics, and she's now the chancellor, I think, at Regent University, among other things. And so we went and just had a very nice chat, she and I and my wife, and talked about all sorts of things, and it was great. While we were there at her hotel, there were a bunch of internally displaced people, IDPs, from the north that have been, they've been put in hotels all over the country. And we got a chance to talk to one of those IDPs for a while. She was very kind and very complimentary, very glad that we were there to report on this and everything. But she was saying, they're putting us up in this very nice hotel in Jerusalem, and they're volunteers that come to bus us around and take us shopping and take us to medical appointments and all the things we need. But she said, I didn't realize how much I needed things to do because we just don't have anything to do. I don't have she's a retiree, so she doesn't have a job to go to, but she said, I put her around my garden and in my kitchen and, just being able to be there cleaning my house and stuff. Here, everything's done for us, and we're just so bored, and it's really sad. But there are a lot of children there too, and so this is like a 5-star hotel. There's right here, this hotel right next to me. If I change the camera, you can probably see that. Nope, you can't see that with that camera. Let's go this way. We'll just turn that camera over there. That hotel, which is the Cassia Hotel, it used to be the King Solomon, I guess, King Solomon Hotel. It's full of IDPs. There's children right now playing down there in the parking lot, and I see them all the time running around out there and screaming and having a good time. These people want to get back to their lives, and that is the trump card for the meetings that the Israelis are having with the Blinken and the Biden administration. That's the trump card, is they can say, we have to do this because we've got 250,000 people. There's still over 60,000 people that have been, just from the north, that have been moved out to hotels. And those people want to get back to their lives, and they can't while there are still rockets flying all over the place. Today, after the ceasefire ended and Israel started striking Gaza, well, actually, before they started striking, about 7 a.m., the Hamas guys knew that it was going to be over, and they started firing rockets out of Gaza first, but then the IDF started pounding them. But they've fired maybe over 100 rockets out of there today. If I look on my thing, here's, some, let's see if I can get that to focus. Yeah, right there. That's around Ashdod. If we look at, the other places that have gotten lots of rockets. This is right around the Gaza Strip. So lots of rockets coming in. And these people are tired. These are all the rocket alerts I've been getting on my phone. Look at that. Just one after the other, after the other, after the other. So we're back to that again. Sooner or later, they've got to run out of rockets in Gaza. With either getting them all blown up or shooting them all. Sooner or later, they've got to run out. While we were at the hotel with Michelle Bachmann, I picked up this pamphlet, this little booklet, because, again, kids playing all over the place, and there are organizations that are trying to help these kids with their trauma, deal with the trauma that they're facing. And this is a booklet that was put out by one of those organizations. Now, Connie was nice enough to go through and sort of translate because it's all in Hebrew, but it's just a book to help the kids work through their trauma. There are booms that make my heart jump, it says. If a truck hits the brakes, I can no longer sit in class. There's a training explosion and annoying thunder. And it talks about, and what about fireworks on Independence Day? Everyone's so happy, and for me, a real nightmare. And then I feel like running, maybe to the shelter, just not to be alone. So they're making these things because there is a lot of trauma here, and they're trying to help these kids work through it. Very interesting to me. Yesterday, when I was at the hospital in Ashkelon, somebody told me that the things that they've had to see, their psychologists need to have psychologists. Do you watch other YouTube channels? Yeah, I watch. I mean, Eric Stakelbeck is a friend of mine. I talk to Eric on a semi-regular basis. I was over there yesterday doing an interview at the TBN studios where he goes for another show. And I talked to Amir on WhatsApp. I think he's still in D.C. He was in D.C. when I talked to him. So, yeah, I do follow their channels, and I get a lot of good stuff from them. I also follow the Israel guys, and they put out a very good daily update on the war, as well as a lot of other good stuff. Just today, they put out a documentary that is, I just started watching it before I came live, and I'm going to watch it tonight after we get done. It looks very powerful. As a matter of fact, I want to show you the trailer for their documentary right now. It's called Confronting Radicals. So take a look at the trailer for their documentary.
When I saw what had become known as the George Floyd riots in America, there was something going on that struck me as being particularly analogous to what we in Israel have been through.
Modernism, liberalism, actually opened the gate to all kinds of ideas by click with your finger. You can come and read and being impressed by them.
You can't tear down America for the goal of more democracy and freedom if you're trying to destroy what makes it a good nation and a constitutional republic.
They claim to fight us in the name of all kinds of values that we uphold, when actually what they're doing is rejecting all of those values and rejecting our right to uphold them.
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Free
They're not fighting for freedom. They're not fighting against racism, but in fact for racism.
Burning, looting.
We've become a nation who has forgotten God.
I think Israel offers a number of answers to the West.
Okay, so that's Confronting Radicals. I'd highly recommend that you go watch it. It's free today. So if you go to confrontingradicals.com, you can watch it for free. And highly recommend you do so. Somebody was just asking if the IDF gets weapons from anybody besides the United States. The answer is I don't think so. The IDF makes a lot of their own weapons. They make their own tanks. They make their own rockets. Their Merkava tanks are specifically made for battle here in Israel. And they do get a lot of financial help from the United States every year. From a per capita standpoint, they're one of the biggest recipients of American military aid. And so the United States does have some sway over Israel. But in this case, again, these leaders here, Bibi Netanyahu is looking at his career and it's like, I'm not going to lose my job. I might lose my freedom. I might end up in prison. Some people will likely end up in prison for the intelligence failure that happened on October 7th. And so they are doing everything they can to try to redeem themselves, which the people of Israel want very specifically for Hamas to go away. And so that's going to happen. There was a article that came out in the New York Times today talking about a report. Now we've heard some rumblings about this, but this was a pretty comprehensive article that described it very well. This report that came out more than a year before the attack, and it literally described the attack down to the smallest detail. It warned that Hamas was planning this attack and planning to do it by specifically attacking on a holiday and specifically attacking the cameras and automated machine guns along the border and specifically using paragliders to come over the border and everything, just laid it all out. They had the entire plan. Now, some people would say, therefore, if they already had the entire plan, that they knew it was going to happen, and there's some grand conspiracy that the Israelis actually wanted this to happen, a bunch of their people to die. That is profane, and I don't believe that for a second. I think it's always better to, if you can ascribe something to stupidity rather than malice, you're more likely to be right. People are more likely to be stupid than they are to be evil. And hubris played a huge part. Pride goes before a fall. And from the article, it specifically mentioned these women officers that were intel analysts who kept bringing it up and saying, they even had a name for it. It's called Jericho Wall. This kid's having a great time down there. The Jericho Wall. And Operation Jericho Wall. They kept talking about it, and they were finally told, stop talking about this. We don't want to hear about it anymore. You can bet that the colonel who kept telling them to shut up is going to lose his job as soon as this is over. Absolutely mind-boggling, but you can when you read the article, you can see that it just came down to hubris. It just came down to pride. So they had sufficient warning, and so did the United States before 9/11. And again, they just believed that they were above it. They believed that, our intelligence is way too good. Your intelligence is literally sitting there telling you that this is going to happen, and you're saying, no, it won't happen because our intelligence is too good. The hubris there is just, whoa, wow. So that is interesting. Let's see here. The Bible says pride goes before destruction. Yes, that's right. Pride goes before destruction. Okay. I saw a question go by there, and now I lost it. Okay, well, what did the IDF do with all the Hamas weapons they find? There it is. Giselle, Hamas weapons are Soviet bloc weapons. meaning they're AK-47s and that sort of thing. And so they're not compatible with IDF weapons. IDF weapons come from the United States. They are more, like what they call NATO standard weapons. They use a different caliber of ammunition, and so they're not compatible. So it's not likely that Israel is going to use them. They're probably going to blow them up and make sure that Hamas can't use them, and that's all. Israel agreed on the exchange of 1 live hostages for Palestinian prisoners. Do you know what the costs will be for the bodies of hostages killed? I don't believe they've made any agreement with Hamas about releasing prisoners for bodies of hostages. They specifically said it had to be live hostages. We're brothers from yesterday, citizens of Israel. They were former criminals. They had been released from prison, so they had spent time, like 10 years in prison already, and recently released, not part of the hostage deal. And they were, they said that they would, they're dead now, but their families have ID card for East Jerusalem. So apparently the Arabs in East Jerusalem can get an ID card, which will allow them, freer access to the rest of Israel than one can get if you live in the West Bank. People that live in the West Bank, they can go to the rest of Israel, but they have to have a reason and they have to go through security. A lot of people say that makes Israel an apartheid state, no more than it makes the TSA an apartheid organization. You go through security at the airport because when we didn't have that, people brought bombs onto airplanes. And if they had never brought a bomb on an airplane, we would still sail right through the airport without going through security today. But the reason that there is security coming out of the West Bank is because there's so many people in the West Bank that want to come in here and kill Jews. So it's not Israel's fault that there's a process for people to leave the West Bank and come into the rest of Israel. But people that live in East Jerusalem can get an ID card that makes it much easier for them to move around. The families of those two brothers, the family of those two brothers, will now lose their ID card and will probably have to move to the West Bank. So that's all I know about that. Let's see. Where does Hamas get the American weapons from? Hope Diary, that's a very good question. I asked that question yesterday because I, like you, have seen the footage and the photographs of Hamas fighters wielding U.S.-made weapons. I was wondering if they got them from Afghanistan. They did not come from Ukraine. There have been... go watch my video I did a couple days ago on Ukraine if you think that there's a lot of corruption selling American weapons out of Ukraine. That's not happening. American weapons are not being sold out the back door from Ukraine. I was there. I did a whole series of reports on that. I followed the military hardware to see it got where it was going. That's not happening in Ukraine. They're not selling those. If they are, no, they're not. However, because I just mentioned that the IDF actually uses American weapons, M16s, and that sort of thing, NATO standard weapons. And there's been a lot of fighting between Hamas and the Israelis, especially on the 7th of October. The Hamas fighters were able to steal a lot of weapons from the bases near the border that where they killed hundreds of IDF soldiers, overwhelmed them and killed them and took all their weapons. And so that's one place that those weapons came from. I was thinking maybe some of them came out of Afghanistan. So I asked some of the IDF troops that have been on the ground in Gaza that I was talking to yesterday, specifically, have you run across any of the enemy carrying NATO standard weapons? And they said, no, we haven't. So I believe that Hamas actually has very few of those NATO standard weapons. Thank you for the $10. But they make sure to use them in propaganda ways to make it look like they have them, and they are highly sought after, even though AK-47s are very reliable weapons. They're just the same everybody else has. What you'll always find everywhere you go is that the commanders end up with the best stuff. Connie's. Okay, somebody wants to know if they're going to reduce restrictions to getting firearms. Here, there are parties in the Knesset who are calling for that. I've found out, as I've said a couple times now, that Netanyahu, as I've read his book on countering terrorism, I was surprised to find that Bibi Netanyahu is a big gun control advocate and very against the Second Amendment and thinks that Americans are idiots for having a Second Amendment. And I wonder if he's rethought that at all after the 7th of October. Thank you for the, is that $20? Wow, good, thank you. So I think Bibi Netanyahu is probably against giving out a bunch of weapons. One of the things that Anthony Blinken has been on about since this whole thing started, they just had 1,200 people massacred. They've got troops massing on the border. They've got rockets flying every day. There's a whole lot to worry about right now. And every time Blinken comes over here, and Biden, the only thing they want to talk about is that there are settlers in the West Bank that are getting weapons, and this is bad, and we can't have this. And you can imagine the Israelis are going, what are you talking? Like, what? So, to say nothing of the fact that it's the Israelis in the West Bank and Judea and Samaria who need the weapons the most, more than anybody. They are in more risk than anybody in Israel right now because they're surrounded by angry Arabs who are calling for a repeat of October 7th. They need weapons. There has been a huge spike in the requests for weapons permits, over 200,000 at last count. And they are apparently making it easier for people, but there are still a lot of rules in place for those guys. Okay, that's the best I can answer that question real quick. Yesterday's Israeli Peacock Quill question. Yesterday's Israel victims. I'm not sure what you're from the shooting. There was a mass shooting a couple miles from here yesterday. 15 people were shot. 4 have now died. All of those were Israeli citizens, and then there were the 2 brothers that did the shooting. Maybe that's what you're asking about. Blinken is putting a deadline in weeks. I didn't see a transcript of their conversation. I doubt there is one that will be released publicly, but he did make it very clear that Israel is running on borrowed time, and that's why the title of this podcast is "The Clock is Ticking," because Israel is, as I predicted, the pressure is ramping up from around the world on Israel to stop the fighting, and Israel is like, no, not listening, la 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 la, and so they're going after it. But what we saw today with the fighting in Gaza shows that Israel is redoubling their efforts. They've done more than 200 bombing sorties today. They are, I'm told that the volume of combat is much higher than it was when they stopped it over a week ago. And so they know they're running on borrowed time at this point. The pressure from the Biden administration may get too much. And Biden may be able to keep his winning streak of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, meaning, ensuring that any military operation that is destined to succeed will fail because of the political points he's trying to score. Connie's saying something about a question. Hang on. Bruce King. Have you seen the news from Michael Schellenberger and the CTIL files from the censorship industrial complex? It closely relates to the Israel Guys documentary. I have not seen it. If you would email me, Bruce, at hotzoneholton@gmail.com, I would be very interested in looking at it. and send me a link, please. Okay, let's go back here. Let's see, Ben. Can you get invited to Daniel Hagari's English language press conference? I can. I am invited every day. I'm on a mailing list from the GPO, the General Press Office, and they send out invitations every day to those things. Personally, I'm not really here. I can get the footage of the press conference after it's over, so I don't really need to go. It's in Tel Aviv usually, and that's an hour from here. I don't want to go all the way out there. I can read the text of it much faster than he can speak the text of it. So I don't like briefings. I don't like meetings at all. I want to be in the field. Son of Hamas founder do you think the son of Hamas founder can make any difference with people's jaded opinion of Hamas? Well, he's speaking a lot around the country. He's in the United States. He's speaking all over. He's going on TV. I think so many people sort of have already made up their mind about this. I saw a video today where a guy was walking around New York City asking people about Hamas, like, who is Hamas? What do you know about them? They don't know anything about them, but they support them. And this is typical, your low information voter out there. They just parrot whatever chant that they hear on the street. Salute from retired U.S. Navy Surface Warfare Commander. Well, thank you very much. Is that Rhonda? Thank you. I appreciate it. Got to keep an eye on the time here. Okay, so I've got some more to show you. I wanted to show you a quote from the IDF spokesman that I was blessed to interview yesterday in the parking lot with a bunch of tanks and armored personnel carriers and things like that. I just show you a quick clip from what he had to say in our conversation. Okay, listen to this. Having to pull some of your armor out during the ceasefire, you're going to have to maybe re-clear some of the same ground when you go back in.
Well, first of all, there is a defensive line inside the northern part of the Gaza Strip, but that doesn't mean too much because the northern Gaza Strip is just 1/3 of the entire Gaza Strip. And we're all aware that the Hamas and Islamic Jihad terror organizations, they're strong in the center of the Gaza Strip, they're strong in the southern Gaza Strip, they're strong in Khan Yunis, they're strong in Rafah, and they have launched rockets from these parts of the Gaza Strip to Israel. And we've seen the release of hostages during the last couple of days. Some of the hostages were released from Khan Yunis. Mm-hmm. We're in a difficult situation because we are fighting a war as a democracy, as a state, as a military which is acting according to a humanitarian law. And we're doing everything in our power to make sure that on the one hand we don't harm civilians, we call them to move from the battlefield. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, we face a terror organization who just want people to die.
Okay, so that is kind of how the troops feel about this whole thing. They have got to finish the race here. I also wanted to talk to you about a website that was put out by the IDF today. I mentioned it on the CBN feed. They put out a map of Gaza. It's a Google map with an overlay on it with the whole territory of Gaza that's divided into little sections, and they're all numbered. And so I'll keep talking about it while I show it to you. You see here, this is southern Gaza, the Khan Yunis in the middle there, and all of these sections have a number. And what the IDF plans to do is turn and go south and push south and start clearing out the south, probably sooner than they originally planned to. And the reason for that is, again, because of that pressure that's ramping up on them. And so they are going south, and they're going to start letting people know, okay, we're coming to number 2280. If you live in 2280, that area, we're going to hit that area next, so get out of there. And they're going to announce ahead of time what section they plan to go into. And so they put out this website with a warning on it, and that is pretty amazing. That's the kind of thing that no military in the world would, that's considered to be the stupidest thing ever by any military in the world, because you just gave up your your biggest tactical advantage, which is surprise. And wow. Lewis asks, can an American Israeli citizen own a firearm? There is a process. It's difficult. Carrying the firearm is even more difficult. So owning it is one thing, but I mean, what's the point of owning it if you can't carry it? And again, that needs to hopefully be relaxed, especially for the people who need it most. But it is possible. It is possible. How long do you think Israel has before they stop? They know that the clock is ticking, and they know that they don't have as much time as they need. That's the message that I have for you tonight, that they know they don't have the time that they need to clear out Hamas. And so they are frantically pushing into Gaza and going hard to try to get this done, or at least get it as close to done as possible before the pressure gets just too great and they are forced to capitulate and give up. If they were left to their own devices and they could do this the way that it needs to be done, it would take years, probably a year at least, maybe 2. These things always take longer than you think. It's kind of like trying to do a project around your house, just double the amount of time and double the amount of money, because it's going to be things that go wrong. War is even more like that. And so they are going to have to put more troops at risk, and so they're going to lose more troops. More people are going to die. They're going to have to be less careful because of the pressure that's being put on them by the United States. And that, unfortunately, is just the reality on the ground. Where is the video about the 3 nurses from New York, about the nurses from New York? It wasn't a nurse, it was a trauma surgeon. How does Israel select, and I'll show you the video again if you like. Actually, tell you what, Carlito, I already showed it once. Go over to chuckholton.com, chuckholton.com, Holton, and the video of the trauma surgeon is there. You can watch it all you want. And I put the long form of it on there, not the short form that I showed here tonight. Lewis asks, how does Israel select journalists to go into Gaza? Well, they're not selecting any journalists to go into Gaza at the moment, which this pause would have been the perfect time for us to go, because Israel labors under the mistaken impression that all of the journalists have to go together on a bus. And they're like, we can't handle that. And I'm like, but that's not the way that you do war reporting. If you want people to see the justice of your cause, and you want them to see the righteousness of your people that are in there doing the fighting, then embed us with each unit so that we can see what's going on. If we happen to see something that is not righteous happening, like say IDF soldiers abusing somebody or something like that, and we report that, we're doing you a favor, because you can then publicly go after that person, grab the person that did it, put them on trial, make it all public, and let the world know that when things, because look, people do things bad, and in war especially. And so it's not like, what you're trying to do is sanitize everything and make it look like, no, we're completely perfect, we're lily white, and we never do anything wrong. No, if you have journalists that are third-party people in there that go into Gaza and they see your troops doing something wrong and they report on that, they're doing you a favor, because that's your opportunity to prosecute that person publicly and let the world know that you have a functioning legal system that won't allow that sort of thing. Let the world know that you don't support that kind of behavior. That's the way to do it, but they're not doing it that way. And they're trying to control it too tightly, and because of that, they're losing the information war. I told them that to their face yesterday, and some of them agreed with me. Could Israel recruit their citizens for a home guard? Well, they have a home guard, pre-trib truth. Um, they they actually have, like, each little settlement, each little kibbutz or community up in the Judean Samaria area, they have like a neighborhood watch on steroids, and those guys do get weapons and body armor and drones and things like that when they have them available. One of the things the Israel guys are trying to do is raise money to get more equipment like that for these neighborhood watch programs, so that they can armor up and arm up and be better prepared to protect their communities. They had people like that at the kibbutzim in the south, but they were taking the day, because it was a holiday, it was a Shabbat. They were not prepared, and there weren't very many of them. And when you have 1,500 Hamas fighters come in, those guys got killed pretty quickly. They did. I've seen some video that was taken by Hamas fighters on their helmet cams that show the Hamas fighter himself getting shot and killed by one of those neighborhood watch kind of guys. So it did happen, and they do have that. But you can imagine, pre-trib truth, that they will beef that up as going forward, because they need to. Rory, thank you for that. The only one that I feel shows I support Israel and always have, and move on. Right. So so Rory, what we're finding out by this map over here that I was showing is they're not going to try to move them out of the south. They're going to try to move them around the south. So they're going to say, okay, well, we're coming into 93, 92, and 91 today. So if you're in those neighborhoods, you need to move. I think the size of these blocks represent what they think they can control in a day or at one time, something like that. And so they're like operational units, maybe you would call them. And so they're going to try to move people out of small areas into the greater part, which is probably not going to work very well. Moving people around is difficult. They don't want to go, and you can't force them to go. I mean, you could try, but that's not going to go well for you in the media. And so that's going to be very, very tough. And like I say, with the pressure ramping up on them to end this thing, and as soon as they go into the south, the pressure's going to redouble that much more, because that's where the people are. And it's just, I am worried that Israel is not going to be able to accomplish their objectives of wiping out Hamas. That worries me a lot, because what we're seeing here is so much pressure being brought to bear, just like I said was going to happen, that they're going to have to figure out a compromise, maybe. I hope not, but it's looking that way. Let's see. Yeah, there have been journalists, Steve, that have gone into Gaza. My friend Trey Yinks from Fox News has been in there 3 times, but they're just not allowing me in, and this is what's really bothering me. They keep telling me I'm on the list, but I was here the 10th of October. Many of those journalists that are here got here much later than that, and so I should be on the top of the list, or if they were going that direction. But let's see. Do think the attacks of October 7th can actually happen in the U.S. as well? Rose, I do think they can happen. Maybe not on the scale. The scale of that would have to be 50,000 dead in the United States. But a large multi-cell terror attack is a foregone conclusion in the United States. It's not, it could happen, it will happen. And there's no question. I mean, if you go watch the 3-part series that the Israel guys did on Hamas in the United States, you'll see that they already have the people there. They don't have to smuggle them in, and if they did, it'd be easy. They tend to plan these things out. They're going to take their time, and they're going to plan something big, and when it happens, it's going to be another 9/11, that kind of scale. How many buildings would go down with Israel's biggest bomb? Well, Israel has some of the Moab, what they call the Moab, mother of all bombs, I believe. They have bunker busters, which, bunker busters will take down a building. They're really not trying to take out a city block. What they're trying to do, their biggest bomb is a nuclear bomb, which could take out, all of Gaza, pretty much, or at least they have something like 80 nuclear bombs. So to answer your question, that's the biggest bomb they have. Let's just hope they don't use it. Okay, let's see here. I'm watching the time. I'm going to have to go here in about 10 minutes max. Left journalists like CNN. Oh man, it just jumped up. Oh, where we go? Are left journalists like CNN, MSNBC, WP being protected by Hamas for reporting? Well, so here's how that works, Luis. CNN hires Hamas affiliated people who already live in Gaza to go film things and do reporting from inside Gaza. They're not going to send Anderson Cooper into Gaza to report, as much as I would like that. They just pay people, and that's why they had that whole scandal come out about the Washington Post and those guys paying people who were actually there on October 7th and in some sense participated in the attacks, knew they were going to happen. When can nuclear weapons be used in the rules of war? I don't know that the rules of war address that question. If they did, they'd probably just say never. You understand that a nuclear weapon is not a weapon that's intended to be used in today's modern world. The countries that have nuclear weapons don't have them going, boy, if things get bad enough, we're gonna love to use that. They are a gigantic stick that they can wield as a deterrent, and they only actually work as a deterrent. Once somebody were to use one in the modern context, then everybody gets to use one, and then it's all over. This is why I don't think that Vladimir Putin will use a nuclear weapon in Ukraine. He's not going to use a tactical nuke, a small nuke, or anything like that, for more than that, just that reason. But also because he understands that the minute he launches a nuclear weapon into Ukraine, it's all over. His country is gone. Because when he uses a nuclear weapon, then everybody uses one. It's that mutually assured destruction. That's what nuclear weapons were designed to do. It's a good question. Let's see. Could the U.S. hostages have been moved out of Gaza? It's possible. It's not super likely, but it's possible. And I wonder about that. It's more likely probably that they're dead, but not hoping that, of course. Let's see. Larry, thank you very much. Very kind of you. How is Beeper Guy? I was just saying, he's already parked. Oh, wait. He's in his truck on his phone right now. He's getting ready. He's getting ready, folks. The beeper is about to sound. Well, maybe. We'll see. You'll know. Believe me, you'll know when it comes. Talk about nuclear weapons. Holy cow. All right. So, we are living in interesting times, Eileen. That's for sure. That's for sure. Beeper truck for the win. Now, I think he's watching a movie. His truck is idling. He's smoking a cigarette, and there's a police car parked in front of him, so he can't leave right now. Maybe that's why he's there. I would love to have him on the podcast sometime and just go, do you know that you're famous? You've become famous over the last month by doing nothing more than just backing up your truck very, very slowly with that ungodly backup beeper that you have on there. Does Israel pay the UN? Yeah, that money's maybe better spent at home. I think Israel does contribute to the United Nations. The United Nations is definitely not friendly to Israel. No question about that. I think the beeping truck guy might be Hamas. I don't know. Maybe that beeper is kind of a weapon of mass destruction, and so maybe that's their new plan. They're going to salt these trucks all over Jerusalem, and they're all going to back up at the same time, and it will bring about the collapse of Western civilization. Yeah, that is one loud beeper, man. Okay, so we need, it's like more cowbell. We need more cowbell. Hey, thank you, Paula. That's very kind of you. Any other last questions before we go? Psychological warfare. It is on me, that's for sure. It is psychological warfare on me. And I didn't even tell you about the jackhammer. On the other side of our building, there is a construction site that they're putting in some big thing or whatever building they're building. But to build it, they have to dig down, I think, to China. And they have two giant excavators down in this hole that's at least two stories deep right now, with these, those big pointy kind of jackhammer things that go on the end of the arm of the excavator that just sit there and go, gah, 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 gah. And they start about 6:30 or 7 every morning, and it's right outside my window, and it's like a 50 caliber machine gun, and I just about dive under the bed every morning when they start up with that thing. Of course, I'm going to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning because I'm making TV up until 1:30 or so, and so I'm not getting a lot of sleep because of those guys. And once they start up, like, sleep is done. You're not going to keep sleeping with two jackhammers going outside. I walked over there and asked them the other day, like, how long is this going to go on? And they said, oh, at least 2 more months. And I was like, oh, okay, well, yep, you got to love that. So I just have to sleep very quickly at night. The kids call me Grandpa Chuck. Your kids call me Grandpa Chuck? Great. About a bomb going off in Gaza, 109 dead. It wasn't the most reputable broadcaster. I've not heard anything. I mean, there have been lots of bombs that went off in Gaza, without a doubt. Today, more than 200 bombs have gone off in Gaza, but I don't know anything about 109 dead. Joey Hawkins' question, what is it? I can't. I can't hear you, babe. A name of Mossad operations that I like. My favorite World War II authors. I love reading stuff about World War II. Historical biography, historical fiction. The All the Light We Cannot See book was fabulous. It depends on where I'm going because, I go to these places so much. Most of the reading that I do has to do with the place where I am or the place I'm about to go. So I was in Normandy this year, filming for a piece that's coming out next summer, and so I was reading books that had to do with Normandy. I really like, I just spaced on the name of the author. I just read Audie Murphy's book. I like the older books, not the more recent ones, but books that came out shortly after World War II when guys who came back from the war were writing their memoirs. So Audie Murphy, who was a famous fighter, and it started in Italy and all the way across through Germany. I just read his book. I think it's called To Hell and Back. Very good book. He's up there as far as a wordsmith goes with that guy that wrote The Helmet for My Pillow. A Helmet for My Pillow is a fabulous book. That guy was such an amazing writer, and I really appreciate it. Being a writer myself, I appreciate good writing as much or more than the actual story. Okay, I have got to go, folks, because they're going to be calling me any minute. If war continues beyond the end of December, you said you're planning to leave. Will you be back to continue my reporting? I don't know. I kind of hope not, but I will be reporting, and I'll continue to do these from wherever I go. So God bless you all. Let's pray real quick, and I'm going to run. Lord Jesus, thank you so much for the privilege of allowing me to bring this news to people. around the world for the technology that you've given us so that we can reach out and we can not only know what's going on, but through this technology, we can reach through the technology to make people's days better in the places where they are hurting. And so I pray that more people would be called to do that. And I pray that you would put the people in front of me, that you would have me to bless with the money that's given by the people on this podcast. We thank you so much for their generosity, the fact that Americans are so blessed, and we are the most generous people group on the planet, bar none, by an order of magnitude. And I just pray that you would help that not to end, that you would convict Americans when they become self-centered and stingy, and that you would cause more people to learn the joy of giving, Father. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, got to run. See you guys later.